amazing things with the choice each new day brings. And with every breath you take, bless the progress that you make. The reason you live is found in every gift you give. Love your life, love your dreams. You will do amazing things. Amazing, amazing. You will do amazing things. Amazing, amazing. You will do amazing things. All the places you will go and the people you will know. Don't worry when or where or how. You don't need to know right now. You're on the right track. No need to look ahead or back. Just enjoy what this day brings. You will do amazing things. Amazing, amazing. You will do amazing things. Amazing, amazing. You will do amazing things. You don't have to work it out. Just stay in the here and now. Let your mind rest for a little while. Sometimes deepest answers come when you're out there having fun. So close your eyes and take a breath and smile. Amazing, amazing. You will do amazing things. Amazing, amazing. You will do amazing things.
Good morning. Welcome to Unity Temple on the Plaza, where diversity is praised and peace and harmony are the rewards. It's going to be a beautiful day. I guess there's a Chiefs game based off the number of people wearing red. I've got just a couple of brief announcements before we start our Sunday morning service. A couple of things going on. Prosperity class, an information Q&A. This is something that Jennifer is going to be leading. It's about learning how to give of the gifts that we've been giving, plus also increasing our own. And the first information session is going to be November 11th at 10 a.m. And then the second is going to be December 7th at 6:30 in the evening. Then also coming up next Sunday, there is the After Death. It's a movie that's playing at AMC 14 on Ward Parkway. Looks like a fantastic movie. It's based upon different people's experiences of near-death experiences and what may come after we pass away. So let's get as many people as we can out there. And if you're interested in attending that, you can buy tickets in advance from the AMC website. Then I also want to bring your attention to the Metaphysical Bible Study. It happens every Sunday morning. It's at 9 a.m. Reverend Sandra leads that. That's an incredible way to learn different ways of looking at old teaching. So I encourage you all, if you're available on Sunday and interested in that, come and show up. So if you want more information on upcoming events, you can always go to the website, which is unitytemple.com. If you're here for the first time visiting us from out of town, we want to give you a very special welcome and invite you to join us for community time on the lower level. It's right after service. And now it's time to begin our service with the temple chimes, the opening prayer, and the call to inspiration with Peggy. The opening prayer can be found on the screen, so follow along if you choose. On this day, we dedicate ourselves to peace on earth. We accept ourselves without harsh judgment and express appreciation for our individuality. We live without fear to meet the events of this day with confidence. We accept others without prejudice to experience a sense of unity with all people. We honor our earthly environment and recognize a oneness with all creation, in harmony with ourselves, our lives, other people, and all of nature. We live this day with a peaceful mind, a peaceful heart, and a peaceful spirit. Thank you, God. Amen.
Love is a never-ending circle. It goes on and on, joining us all in one, in a common bond. Love is a never-ending circle. It goes on and on. It goes on and on. It goes on and on. It goes on. Please come and stand if you choose and sing along with Amazing Grace. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a soul like me. I once was lost, but now I am found, was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to sing, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already passed. 'Tis grace that brought me safe thus far to freedom that will last. It's so wonderful to hear all your voices singing this morning. And we're just going to keep on. My life goes on in an endless song. A birth is lamentations. I hear the real, the far off hymn that hails a new creation. Above the tumult and the strife, I hear the music ringing. It sounds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing what through the tempest loudly roars? I hear the truth, it arms round me close. Songs in the night it giveth. No storm can shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I'm clinging, since love is Lord of heaven and earth. How can I keep from singing when tyrants tremble, sick with fear? I hear the death knell ringing when friends rejoice both far and near. How can I keep from singing? No storm can shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I'm clinging, since love is Lord of heaven and earth. How can I keep from singing? My life goes on in endless song, a birthless lamentation. I hear the real, the far off hymn. How can I keep from singing, Lord? How can I keep from singing? Oh, how can I keep from singing? Thank you.
I've got some good news, and I got some really good news. First of all, next Sunday, Sandra Campbell is coming back from her sabbatical. She'll be speaking at this service. We're so excited about that. We've missed her. Be gone for, I think she's been gone 90 days or so, maybe a little bit longer. Anyway, it's great to have her back. But meanwhile, back to the present moment, which is what we need to focus on. When I was a student in seminary, I had a professor, Robert Brummett, and he's our speaker today. And back then, he even had risen to the level where the students respected him as, excuse me, their spiritual master. He had something that none of the other teachers had, and we just flocked around him. I also want to thank him for giving me a grade that got me out of seminary. It was barely passing, but still, it was passing, and I appreciated that. In 1996, Robert Brummett, myself, a fellow named Vern Barnett, who used to write for the Kansas City Star, and Ben Worth met in my office. And we were discussing something that was so radical that nobody in the entire Unity movement had ever done it before. And with that came a lot of questions. We were going to open a Buddhist center at Unity Temple. And so what would Unity say about that? Would they object? Would they think it was hypocritical? Or what would other people say? That other ministers were so worried about all the forces outside that would condemn it and criticize it, and it shouldn't be in a Unity church. But the question came up, well, who can stop us? And it was nobody. So we decided to open the American Buddhist Center at that point, and eventually evolved into the Temple Buddhist Center. But we discovered as a perfect complement with unity, as a perfect complement with Christianity. Buddhism is more of a psychological approach to life than unity is, but unity has more of a spiritual and psychological approach. Anyway, enough of that. It's my great pleasure to present to you a good friend of mine for 35 years, Reverend Robert Brummett.
I do appreciate that.
Does that feel okay?
It feels good to me. Can you all hear? Okay. Sounds good. You have a seat here. Over the years, I've had many teachers, and in recent years, the primary teacher I've had is my body. It's taught me a lot. Sometimes it's a fierce teacher, but it's like every experience we have is for us to learn and grow. And, that's one of the common teachings between Buddhism and unity, is that everything is present. And when we meet it with an open mind and an open heart, we have the opportunity to become more than we were in our right now, you see. So, and it's a joy to be here and an honor to be here. And thank you, Duke, for that wonderful introduction. As many of you know, I usually speak on the other auditorium. And I often think of this ministry, this building, as kind of like the east and west of the world. Unity as a Western religion was developed here in America, homegrown, based on modern precepts. Buddhism was developed in the East 2,500 years ago under ancient and a very different paradigm. And this is a place where we bring the two of them together. And for those of you that think there's a significant difference, I would say there is in some ways, and yet at the same time, I've been a unity minister for 40 years, and I've taught Buddhism for 30 years, and I am perfectly comfortable with each, and I see no conflict whatever. They're different, but they're not in conflict, you see. West is west, east is east. They do meet, but they meet in the recognition that each has something to give to the other, the yin and the yang, you see, the heart and the mind. So it's good to be here. It's wonderful to see a lot of old friends that I haven't seen for a while, and it's a beautiful day, It's like this, when God made October, I think this is what she had in mind, a day like this, It's just driving down Ward Parkway, it would just open my heart to see the beauty that's here. So the title of my talk is, That's a Good Question. When someone says that to you, that's a good question. What does that usually mean to you? It means they probably don't have the answer, right? If you ask somebody their name and they say, that's a good question, you're going to wonder about that individual, right? Because the term "that's a good question" implies, I don't know, but I'm willing to find out, you see. But the idea of not having answers to questions is challenging for us in our culture because we are so deeply conditioned to have the answers. Particularly in the world that I grew up in the 40s and the 50s. You know, we were drilled, that was teaching, was just being drilled with the answers, whether it was 2 + 2 = 4, or God made you so you could go to heaven. You know, the answers were just pumped in. Kind of like installing a cell or something in the brain. The problem with answers is they tend to be dead. You know, we get an answer when we're 6 years old, and some people never change that answer. They live their whole life with that same answer that they were given or that they arrived at when they were 5 or 10 years old. And so once we have an answer and we say, this is the way that it is, this is the way I am, this is the way people are, then we're locked into that answer. And that answer becomes, maybe it makes us feel good and safe, but it also keeps us in a prison. And yet we're always encouraged to have the answers. You know, politicians, for example, if someone asks them a question and they say, well, I really don't know, but I'm willing to just be with that. They're probably not going to get many votes, you see. They're not even going to get nominated because you have to have the answers right away. Boom. And you have to have these pet answers. And so often, we're just peppered with answers. And we don't even know what the questions are sometimes. So I think it's really important to look at what we don't know, look at what challenges us, look at what our teacher is, and see what the questions are. Questions themselves can be very alive, very open. It doesn't depend so much on the words as the intent, as the attitude from which it comes, you know. When you see someone on the street and they said, hello, how are you? Typically, what do you see? You see, I'm fine, I'm good, and all that sort of stuff. That's kind of a dead answer because it's a dead question, right? They really don't expect to hear how you are. In fact, I had a Korean gentleman work for me many years ago before I was in ministry. And he says, Robert, why do you Americans always ask me how I am and you never stop to listen to my answer? And I said, Sung, that was his name. Unfortunately, when people say, how are you, they really don't want an answer. They just don't know what else to say after they say hello. So when someone says, how are you, in that way, it's dead and perfunctory. But when you sit down with a friend over a cup of coffee, and they look you in the eyes, and they say, Tom, Mary, Judy, how are you? That's very different, isn't it? That's a question that's alive. That's a question that you want to respond to. That's a question you can learn from. So questions, when they're not filled with an immediate perfunctory answer, if we're willing to stay open, we can learn much more from those kind of questions because they're alive. The good questions are the ones that don't have immediate answers, but don't have one-word answers. The poet Mark Nepo says, never ruin a good question with an answer. I always liked that, you know, because an answer shuts things down. You know, a question leaves things open. Who am I? Who am I? You know, when I was in Catholic school, the answer was very clear. You know, you were a child of God and you were made to go to heaven, right? Okay, got it. End of story. And many people live their whole life with that answer, right? It's interesting that people that have the answers seem to be rigid. They seem to be opinionated. They don't seem to be open to growth. It's the ones with the questions, with the open mind, that are growing and open and alive, you see. Excuse me. I drank from the living water. It's good. We're not taught to ask questions because sometimes we're afraid they're going to be silly questions. You know, how many times have I had a question when I was younger that I wanted to ask, but it seemed like a silly question, and I was afraid to ask it, you see. Because many of us, if not most of us, have had situations where we've been laughed at or we've been humiliated, or some adult has says, you know, that's really a silly question, you know. Stop asking questions. Stop asking silly questions. But you know, the greatest discoveries in history have been the result of silly questions. Why does time run forward? Why doesn't it ever run backward? Isn't that a pretty dumb question? Well, that question came from Stephen Hawking. And it's described in great detail in his book, Brief History of Time. But that question led him to a great deal of discoveries around black holes, radiation, the nature of time. You see, the nature of the universe. That question opened up an exploration for him that was never there until that question was formed. See, so that silly, dumb question was very, very brilliant after all. How many times have you asked a question that's been called silly, and later on you discover that it's quite brilliant? When I was taking a course in geology at university, we looked at the geology of North America. This was back in the 60s. North America, South America, Europe, Africa. And I noticed the shape of them. They looked like, you know, if you pushed them together, they kind of fit together like a puzzle. So I asked the teacher if these have ever been one continent or if they've ever been together. And he just smirked and says, you know, that's a question a lot of people ask, but it means nothing. You know, it's just a coincidence. Of course, that's not what geology teaches us now. It teaches us it was once one continent that separated. So how much of our knowing has never really come into fruition because we've been afraid to ask the questions, because we've been afraid to feel silly? Here's another silly question. What's it like to ride on a beam of light? I mean, that's dumb because you can't answer that, right? But you know who asked that question? Albert Einstein. And that question, that playfulness, that playful question led to the discovery of his first theory of relativity, the special theory of relativity, the development of space, time, gravity. Very powerful, you see. Another question. Here's another really dumb question. How do I know that I exist? Who asked that one? Rene Descartes. And he pondered that. How do I know I exist? Well, I know I exist because if I didn't exist, I couldn't ask the question. How do I know that I exist? So he came to the conclusion that I'm able to think, therefore I must exist. I think, therefore I am. And that particular statement then laid the groundwork for the scientific era, for what was called the Enlightenment, that broke with 1,000 years of blind faith dictated by the church. And at the time of Descartes, after his searching and discovery, why, that opened the door to scientific discovery, to discovering the answers ourselves, rather than living in blind faith, to awakening to the curiosity of the mind. What is this? You see, rather than living in the dead world of answers that existed in the Middle Ages for 1,000 years. You know, few people asked questions then because everybody knew the answers. You know, the answer was God or the Pope or the King. They gave you the answers. You know, the life was structured so that you knew who you were and you knew what the answers were. But with the advent of the Renaissance and the Reformation and the Age of Enlightenment, why, all sorts of questions started to arise that opened us up to a very different way of being, a very much more live way of being, I believe, you see. So Einstein has said, never stop questioning, never lose a holy curiosity. I love that term, a holy curiosity. And Einstein was not a particularly religious individual, but he recognized that there was a holiness to existence, and that by asking the right questions, he could discover what he called how God thinks, the mind of God. Never lose a holy curiosity. And the poet Rilke, Rainer Maria Rilke, in his letters to a young poet, he says, don't seek the answers, live the questions. Look at the questions in your mind and learn to live them. And if you live the questions, then someday you'll eventually find yourself living the answers. Because that's the real answer to a real question. It's not words, it's not even ideas, it's how you live your life. So I often ask people, what questions are you living? What questions are guiding or maybe even driving your life? I'm more interested in that than what answers you have. You see, most of the time in the world, we succeed by having the right answers. And that's what the world sees as an authority and as important. And, you know, in some cases that's true. If you're building a bridge or if you're doing something in the world of engineering or accounting or running a business, why, there are certain answers you need to have. But when we talk about how we live our life, answers are less important than the questions. What questions are you living? Some years ago, when I was teaching at Unity Institute, Peter Russell spoke there, and I really enjoyed it. How many here are familiar with Peter Russell or his works? A few of you are. And he's a scientist and an author, quite an intelligent man. And he gave a seminar at the school. And a few days afterwards, I had some questions that arose about his presentation. And I wanted to challenge him on something, so I called. I got his phone number and I called him. And that was back in the days when we had answering machines, you know, it was before the days of voicemail. But you had the tape answering machine. And so when I called him, I got his answering machine. And the response on the machine said, "This is not an answering machine. It's a questioning machine. Who are you? And what do you want?" He says, "Please don't take these questions lightly before you respond." Well, I was so enthralled by that statement that I forgot what I was going to ask him. Am I doing okay sound-wise? It feels like this. Okay, as long as you can hear me. Because I think there's something coming off there. Felt like my ears were falling on.
There we go.
Oh, thank you so much. What questions are you living? I've got a riddle for you. And the riddle is this. I want you to imagine yourself inside of this room that has no doors, no windows. All the walls are just solid steel. And the solid steel, 3 foot thick all the way around. Floor, ceiling, all the walls. No way in and no way out that you're aware of. No way to communicate with anyone. You don't have any tools with you. So there you are in that room. What's the question that you can ask that will get you out of that room? How do I get out? No, there's no way out. What question leads to freedom? What question will take me beyond this box that I'm living in? The question is, how did I get in? And when you ask that question, what happens? How did you get in? You imagined your way in, right? How do you get out? Stop imagining. And it's gone. Right? We got in that dilemma because we imagined our way into the dilemma. And the only way to get out is to stop imagining. If we're in a bad dream, the only way out is to wake up. But we keep trying to change the dream. So if we ask a powerful question, it can open the door. And when I say asking a question, I don't mean a question in which you try to find the answer. I mean a question in which you can live. Finding the questions that you can live. Living with a holy curiosity makes you a lifelong learner. And I want to close with this quote by Eric Hoffer, who is an American philosopher. And I'll read this quote twice because it's very poignant, I believe. Eric Hoffer writes, "In times of radical change, it is the learners who will inherit the earth, while the learned will be beautifully equipped to handle the world that no longer exists." In times of change, the learners will inherit the earth, while the learned, while those that have the answers, will be beautifully equipped to live in a world that no longer exists. Because learning is always in the present moment. And when we live our life based upon answers that were created and solidified 10, 20 years ago, we're not open to learning. But when we're willing to say, I don't know, when we're willing to have a holy curiosity, when we're willing to say, that's a good question, let me live it. I want to close by saying, I wish that you never stop living with a holy curiosity. I bless you. Thank you.
Our thoughts are prayers, and we are always praying. Our thoughts are prayers. Listen to what you're saying. Seek a higher consciousness, a state of peacefulness, and know that God is always there. And every thought becomes a prayer.
Every thought's a prayer. Every question is a prayer. Go within your heart and let your heart reveal the question to you. That calls you forth at this moment in your life. What questions lead to freedom within you? What questions are being lived through you? What questions allow you to live a holy curiosity. I invite you to listen. Listen for the questions. Listen for the answers. But don't let any answer be final. Every answer is but a stepping stone to a higher truth. Truth is open-ended, infinite. The truth that you are is revealed through the questions that you ask, through the questions that you live. So let's take a moment to just rest in the silence, breathing, sensing the body, relaxing the mind, opening the heart, resting in the silence, resting in the silence. And from that silence emerges the seeds of a new you, of a new life, of a new set of questions, a new set of questions to be lived. We say thank you, Spirit, for this beautiful and wonderful, holy curiosity. And so it is. And amen.
May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. And may we be happy.
We now come to that sacred time in our service where we give of our love and our offerings. Our gratitude affirmation is on the screen, and I invite you to say it with me. I am blessed by Unity Temple I am a blessing to Unity Temple, and I affirm divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I give and all that I receive. And so it is.
Thank you. You need it?
I do. If I could look down on this path I walk from somewhere way up high, I could see the crooked road that I have come. I've walked a mile with sorrow, I've walked a mile with joy, and now I'm less afraid of either one. For every tear I've cried, there's a smile I have earned. For every mile I walked, there's a lesson I have learned. I'm not lost, I am exploring. Life is an adventure worth enjoying. Though I may not know where I'm going, I am not lost, I am exploring. I am not lost, I am exploring. Some people choose to live their lives in quiet avenues, while others find a place in the parade. Some like me are seekers, we take less traveled roads, believing we could find a better way. And though I get discouraged, I won't be turning back. I have joy as my compass and faith as my map. I'm not lost, I am exploring. Life is an adventure worth enjoying. Though I may not know where I'm going, I am not lost, I am exploring. I am not lost, I am exploring. All of us headed for the same destination, so why not blaze a trail that's got imagination? I'm not lost, I am exploring. Life is an adventure worth enjoying. Though I may not know where I'm going, I am not lost, I am exploring. I am not lost, I am exploring. For all those explorers out there, right, Robert?
Thank you, Robert, and Peggy. A lot to think about, a lot to contemplate, and as a reminder, after service, if you're interested, we're going to have coffee and cookies downstairs, so if you'd like to come join us for fellowship down there, I want to encourage you to come down there. So thank you again for joining us today. Please join us again next week. Now we will conclude this service with the prayer for protection and the peace song. The light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.